Okay, good day and welcome to today's webinar called Service Catalog and Request Management. Next slide, please. The webinar is brought to you by the Vivid HP Service Management Special Interest Group, led by Laura Walker and myself, but also by the Vivid Configuration Management System Special Interest Group. My name is Floris Verschoor. I'm founder and CTO at Westbury IT Services. We are very much focused on enterprise reporting for the HP ITSM portfolio, but also one of the initiators of the Vivid HP Service Management Special Interest Group. Next slide, please. Some housekeeping rules. Today's live session is intended for all the Vivid members, so the recording will be posted in the webinar section of the Vivid website, and that will be visible for all members. But additional to today's slide deck and webinar recording, we will make that available for you. We will send you the link via email once they are posted on a Vivid website. So you will be notified through an email. If you do have questions as we go along, please type and send them in the question pane in the Join Me application, and we will pick that up and, of course, answer them accordingly. One last remark from me before I hand it over to the presenters is about the HP Discovery event in Las Vegas in June. If you do go there, and of course you have to register for that event, please use the Vivid enter codes. As you can see them on this slide. It will give you a $300 discount on the registration. So please use that, and I hope to see you there actually. So now because that's what we are here for, now I'd like to hand it over to Torrey Jones and for the Greenlight Group. Yeah, so please go ahead, Torrey.
Thank you, Floris. Thank you for that. Thanks for covering the housekeeping topics. And like Floris, myself, and a handful of us from Greenlight Group will be at HP Discover in Vegas this June, so we hope to see folks there. Really quick, we'll just run through an agenda to kind of get you guys a feel for what we're going to cover today. There's a couple of folks on the line from Greenlight Group. Myself, Torrey Jones. I've been in the service management space for 14, 15 years now. Focused a lot on the incident management space early on in my career, and have really picked up catalog and the whole request management aspect here in the last handful of years. That's myself. Also on the phone with me from Greenlight Group is Stephanie Mason, who's one of our principal engineers. Stephanie, would you like to introduce yourself there briefly?
Sure. Thank you, Torrey. My name is Stephanie Mason. I've been with Greenlight Group for the past year, and my focus is around automation and orchestration. And I have a significant amount of experience in monitoring and orchestrating IT and network environments over the past 15 years.
Excellent. Thanks, Stephanie. Just real quick before we jump off the agenda and start to get into just a quick high-level overview of Greenlight, who we are and what we do, just a reminder to ask questions. Utilize that question manager that's available to you on the Bright Talk viewing page. We're watching those. We'll monitor those throughout the course of the presentation here today and try to respond to those, hopefully in near real time, though we do have some time allocated at the end to try to cover questions if needed as well. Next slide, Stephanie. So today, and one of the things that you might be noticing here a little bit in the presentation is we're doing a live presentation. So there will be a live portion of the demonstration a little later in the show here. So when we ask for next slide, that's what we're referring to. changes things a little bit on the back end for the presenters. So really quick, Greenlight Group overview, who we are, what we do, that sort of thing. Greenlight Group, we're headquartered in Salt Lake City. We're primarily focused west of the Mississippi, if you will, though we do nationwide, U.S. nationwide organization help. We're an HP Gold partner, have been that way for a number of years. We're rated as one of the fastest growing companies in the state of Utah in 2013. We've won a number of awards from HP, specifically a partner offering award that we won back in 2012. Additionally, what do we offer? What is our scope, if you will, from Greenlight's perspective? So we have a number of different specialties, service management definitely being one of those core specialties that we've focused on. We're a traditional HP software partner. We grew up in the service management space from the OpenView Service Desk days, picking up Peregrine and the Service Center technologies as it came through and merged into the HP software world. And we've really been one of the embracers of the latest service management technology coming out from HP, Service Anywhere, which is actually part of our live demonstration here later today. Other operational stacks that we have, if you will, is operations management, which is where Stephanie comes from. We also have automation management and business intelligence as well. Okay, so service catalog. This is what we're here to talk about today. So we're going to talk, I've got a couple slides here to talk about why and then what to do and how to get through it. So we're going to take a look at this real quick. So why service catalog? Why should an organization leverage a service catalog? First and foremost, there's an acronym that I learned many years ago, KISS, KISS. Keep it simple, silly, is a good way to put it. So trying to keep things simple, simplifying things from the end user perspective, simplifying things from the IT technician perspective who has to fulfill those requests that come from end users. Standardization as well as part of that. Standardizing, hold on, jump back for a slide there,
Sorry.
Steph, would you?
Yeah.
It's not a problem. So standardizing that request intake process, that really will simplify things for the back-end IT technicians, right? But then we also cannot lose focus on the end-user experience, right? So we need to really focus on that simplification of the end-user experience. Our good friend Dilbert here has a nice slide, if you will, or a comic strip. He's trying to order some pens, but he can't because it's literally impossible because he needs a pen to fill out the pen request form. So you can finish reading that there, but that's really the idea here, is trying to keep things simplified for that end user, trying to keep things standardized, so that way when requests do get to the actual technicians on the back end, the people who are actually going to fulfill the requests, they have consistent data for each and every request of the same type. They'll have the same, 7 attributes that they need or 7 pieces of information that they need to deliver, in this case, Dilbert's order of pens to him. So really trying to simplify, standardize, and really trying to do more with less, because this is a concept that we're going to see as we move through the presentation here, and that I know IT organizations struggle with day in and day out, is how to do more with less. Next slide, if you would, Steph. Okay, so no matter where you're at in the service catalog maturity model, if you will, what should you do next? Really the big thing to do next is take that next step. Whatever it is, whatever it looks like for you and your organization, you got to make sure you take that step, because if you don't take that step, you'll never make progress. For those folks who are just getting started in a service catalog thought process or service catalog deployment, if you will, in your organization, one of the critical things up front is to gain management support. Right. Go to management. Make sure that you have that management support, because you will need that as you go through the different stages of a service catalog deployment. It'll really help drive the adoption by the user community. It'll help drive adoption from a standardization aspect of the request fulfillment backend, if you will. It's crucial, really, across the board. If you've already got management support, or maybe somewhere you're in the middle of, you got management support, but you're not quite sure what to do next, get a team together, start to work through and identify what their responsibilities are. And then dream big, right? Envision what your world looks like, and hopefully today we can help paint this picture of what that world looks like when end users are completely happy and IT technicians who are fulfilling the requests are completely happy, and everybody has a high level of satisfaction. But when you're doing that, right, that's that dream big step. But when you're doing that, map out a plan and take manageable steps. And manageable steps here need to be taken in context of you and your organization. For instance, a smaller organization may be more nimble. They may be able to take bigger steps, but a larger scaled organization may move a little slower. So you may want to bite things off, the perpetual cookie, if you will, in a little smaller bites, if that makes sense. Really taking manageable steps for what your organization can handle at that time. Important thing to note here, continue to make progress. Some progress, no matter how small, is still progress. If you continue to make progress, you will eventually get to your goal. Can't lose sight of that. Can't lose sight of where you're trying to go. It may take, and in some organizations it does take years to get to that ideal state. In some organizations they can get there rather quickly because they're smaller and more nimble. But still, make some level of progress in that aspect. So once you have a team, you've got management support, you're going to start to actually do work. And what does that work look like? And that's what the arrow is here on the right-hand side of the slide. Really, the biggest first step is to identify a offering of a service, okay, of a service of a specific thing that you would like your end users to request. Okay, it could be as simple as our Gilbert example previously, ordering a set of pens. It could be as complex as requesting a server build. It could be anything in between. Okay, but the first step really is to identify what that is. Once you know the catalog offering, if you will, or these item or set of items that you want to offer in your catalog, next major step there is to collect information about that offering. So this is trying to portray to collect that information that you need, that the back-end fulfillment folks are going to need to collect from the end user, so you can simplify the experience for the end user, simplify it for the technician, and standardize the inputs. Okay, so the technician, for instance, if he's going to order, Gilbert's going to order a pen, the people who are going to fulfill him the pen need to know, well, how many do you want? What color are they? Do you want the click top, or would you like the removable caps? Right, that sort of information about the pen request. And I probably just made a pen request seem a little bit more difficult, but those are the types of questions that you need to think about. What are those pieces of information that the back-end fulfillment teams are going to need to actually fulfill that request in a quick and timely manner? Moving up the arrow, if you will, logically associate that service offering to a service, right? So the service offering in and of itself is that individual item. It's the pens that need to be ordered. Okay, so that's the service offering in our example. Logically associating it to a service, perhaps there's a service for business supplies. Right, so that business supplies layer would be the service as opposed to the specific offering of ink pens, for instance. Next step, moving up the arrow there, is really to create the offering in the chosen technology. Regardless of what the technology is, everybody from presentation perspective would love it to be an HP software solution, but regardless of what the technology is, that's really that next step. Once you have the information about it and you can logically associate that service offering to an actual service, build it in the technology. Okay, create it in the technology. So you start to build in those pieces of information that you need to collect from the end users. So you can start to see what that looks like. You can get a feel for what that looks like and how you want to collect that information. Once you have that service offering identified and created in the technology, really the last step is to place it in the catalog. And you do that for the most part by placing it into some structure in the catalog. So some categorization structure, essentially. Think about if you go to Amazon and you're trying to find a shelf for your closet, for instance. If you're going to browse Amazon, you're going to go out to Amazon's website, and then you're going to go to the household section. And then in the household section, you're going to probably find home organization. And then in home organization, you're going to have shelving, right? And there's going to be lots of different options there. And from that perspective, you can then start to filter your results. But you're at the service offering layer when you get to the shelves. Okay, but the structure that you used to get there was household and then home organization. The same type of approach should be taken in a service catalog so that your end users can actually find the things that they're looking for. Okay, if they're just browsing to see what's available, make sure that that structure, that categorization structure, is logical. Another important thing to remember, specifically around this catalog structure, is use terms that your end users are going to understand. If you use codes, whether they're IT-based codes or HR-based codes, or if you use non-end user-friendly terminology, you will have a much more difficult time getting your end users to adopt usage of the catalog, right? And remember, at the end of the day, it's all about trying to make things simpler and easier for that end user. So if you use terms they don't understand, it's going to be more challenging for them, and you're going to reduce your adoption rate. Steph, next slide, please. Another thing to keep in mind, we talked a little bit on the previous slide here about the technology to be used. And one of the things you want to evaluate when you're determining the technology to use is make decisions around that for tomorrow. And I'll talk a little bit about what I mean by that. So currently, we're in a little bit of a flux in that we have approximately, shown by the pie chart in the bottom right-hand corner, we have approximately half of our workforce today across the United States is nearing the age of retirement. Okay, so they're in their 50s, sometimes 60s, and they're on their way out, if you will, right? They're approaching that retirement age. So what does that mean, and what is the impact that's going to have? So that really means that the workforce is going to become younger over the next handful of years, right? You can see by the graph in the bottom left-hand corner of this slide that we're approaching this middle point where the younger generations, Gen X and millennials, are going to start to overtake from a percentage perspective of the number of employees in the workforce from the baby boomers and the veterans in the workforce today. So that's going to start to change and start to shift and cause a shift in the way that technology gets leveraged, in the way that technology gets used and adopted across the organizations that you guys work in. If you haven't done research on this topic, I would suggest that you spend a little bit of time doing some research on this topic of the generational differences between those folks nearing retirement and the folks that are going to be in the workforce for the next 15, 20 plus years. Even if your research on this is just to go down to your corporate lunchroom or your corporate gathering area, the water cooler per se, and just sit back for a few minutes and watch the people that come through and start to identify what generation you would put them in, and are they nearing retirement or are they still quite a ways off from retirement? I'll bring this point up and bring this topic up because Gen X and the millennial generation, the younger folks, the under 35 crowd, if you will, is definitely more technological than, say, folks over 40, for instance. And I realize that could be somewhat of a gray area from a split perspective. But in general, the younger generations have grown up with technology. They've had a device in their hand since a very young age, going all the way back to the Game Boy era of the early 90s. These folks have grown up with technology. They know it. It's just a natural extension to them. Whereas the slightly older generations of the baby boomers and the veterans of the world, they didn't grow up with technology. They grew up with a technology that was, I'm going to say, older, if you will, the televisions and the radio and the telephone itself, right? That was their technology. Whereas today, folks growing up today have grown up with computers effectively, their entire lives. So that's important to know because it changes how people interact with a given system. Last topic on this slide is to really enable, you're fine, Steph, is really to enable those younger generations with technology. And by this, what do we mean, right? It goes back to those younger generations are more familiar with technology. They have grown up with it. They interact with it. They're on their mobile devices all the time. They're constantly posting to Facebook. They're constantly posting to Twitter. They're constantly on Amazon, right? I know me and my family, we do this. We'll go to the store and we'll look for something to buy, and I'll say, man, I bet you I can get that cheaper on Amazon. Pull up on my phone, Amazon, yep, save $10. It'll be here in 2 days. Great, grand, wonderful. Everybody's happy. Okay. That is the approach that I'm referring to. The younger generations use technology in many different ways, and we need to enable our catalog users, our end users, and our IT technicians, enable them with technology. okay? In my example, and perfect bullet here is the mobile aspect, right? Users, your end users who want to place catalog orders, and also those technicians who are fulfilling those orders, they're on the move. They're always out. They're always doing something. Making your catalog available to those users, and also for the fulfillment technicians, making the technology more available to them is going to be more widely adopted. It's going to help your adoption rate across your organization from your end users and your technician perspective. The other thing with technology is make things easier for your end user and exploit the technology, if you will, to do that, right? So this is anything from search functionality. How does your users find anything in your catalog? If you go back to this Amazon example, if I was going to go to Amazon and look shelf in my previous example, I wouldn't go and browse home, organization, and whatever the path was that I chose to take there. I would literally go to the search bar and type in closet shelf and see what results I get back, and then scroll through the list. Okay, same sort of mentality, same sort of approach from a catalog perspective, but exploit your technology in order to get to that level, okay, to make things easier to find. Browsability catalog, not, at least in my opinion, is not as big of an issue if you have good search functionality, but if you're limited in some capacity from a searching capability, make sure that your catalog is browsable, right? Make sure that it's easy for the end user and exploit the technology, whatever technology choice you have in your organization to do so. And then again, I cannot stress this last point here enough, is use terms that the end user can understand. Don't use terms that they don't understand. Don't ask them to order a pen, but the only option they have is, I can't come up with anything off the top of my head, some calligraphy pen, right? Don't call it a calligraphy pen. Just call it a typical ink pen, for instance. Make things simple. Use terms that the end user can understand. And then the last point on enabling with technology, okay? In order to enable with technology and to get to this concept of doing more with less, use technology to exploit that doing more, okay? And by that I mean use automation wherever possible, no matter how small, regardless of what it is. Use automation to make your life from a fulfillment engine perspective easier. Take your automation, build building block like automation steps, and then tie them together. Steph, next slide. So what do I mean by this automation aspect, and how do you do this? You can go through this slide, Steph. The typical approach, actually, nope, back one. The typical approach here is to take a step back and take a look at what it is you can automate. And maybe that request is to automate onboarding, for instance. Well, that's a big task. And really, onboarding is not a single task. It's really a bunch of tasks tied together. Okay, so each of the individual tasks, the building of the cubicle and the installation of the phone and the installation of the network or turning on of the network and setting up of the computer workstation, right, and the build of the desk, if you will. Those are individual tasks. That's that bottom step there. The onboarding process would be, and all of those tasks tied together would be an orchestrated process, if you will. So that middle step there is really trying to indicate that you take small steps that you've identified, those building blocks, if you will, and you organize them in a certain manner, and now you can automate the entire thing using an orchestrated product. And that's really important to understand. And the end result is you transform your service delivery. Now things that used to be manual and used to take a long time now are greatly reduced from a time to delivery perspective. So your overall process, time to deliver your overall process gets shrunk. Next slide, Steph. So what does this really look like? So I'm going to walk through a typical manual service request here and what this looks like and how long it takes, and I'm sure most folks out there can relate to this. Suppose somebody starting on the left of the slide wants to create a SharePoint site, or they want to add a user, or they want to add DNS entry or something along those lines. What happens? However that request gets collected, it could be as simple as a piece of paper that got filled out indicated by our post-it note there. It could be a ticket that got created. It could have been created because the end user, the person who needed to get something done, called up a entry-level service desk and said, I need to add something to my domain name service for the organization, and the service desk typed in a ticket, okay? But that first column there in that post-it level is really indicating that the request got logged, okay? Once the request gets logged, someone, a real person, has to take a step back and evaluate it. Do I have all of the information that I need? Does it have all of the right approvals? Do I have all the information I need from the end user? Those sorts of questions. They take time to answer, okay? Suppose that they get their approvals and they get all the information. They then have to make a determination. Can I deliver this? Can I fulfill this request? It could be outside of their responsibility. It could be something that's inside their responsibility, but they don't particularly have the skill set to do. Chances are they're going to have to make a manual handoff to what I'm going to call the tier 2 layer here, the middle person, the gray person in the manual operations. That second person is going to have to, A, collect the information, get an understanding of the request, find out, make sure that the first person collected all the right information, identify how long it's going to take to do it, to do the request, right, whatever it was, and then they're going to have to find that time to deliver it, okay? And in this stage, they could be referring to some knowledge bases. They could be, referring off of their tribal knowledge. But at the end of the day, they're going to have to make a decision. Can they deliver it, or do they need somebody else to deliver it? So sometimes there's this third person engaged, right? And that's that tribal knowledge person. That's that deep level person for these special requests that any of the first two people couldn't deliver on. This whole process takes time, and it could be a lengthy delay because each of these people have to prioritize the request as it comes into their quote-unquote queue, and they have to say, I have time to work on this now, or I need to deal with this after 5 meetings that I have backed up. So this is going to get to either this afternoon or tomorrow or next week, whatever that looks like, right? But there's this process of triaging with each of these steps. There's this process of do I have all of the right information? Do I have the time to do it? Do I have the ability to do it? All of that decision and all of that internal processing, if you will, at the human layer takes time, okay? And again, that delay could be hours, and it could be days. Now, to look at this same request, but with an exploit to technology, with leveraging an automation system to deliver the request, I'm going to hand it over to Stephanie and let her take us through the same request with HP's product operations orchestration, which we'll demo for you guys here momentarily. Stephanie?
Thanks, Torrey. So now we take this same request to build a server or add some sort of record or create a SharePoint site, and it's all being automated with service requests and automation. If you look at the back of this slide, you'll see the flow of the diagram on how tasks are automated and how each step moves to the next, and based off of failures or success, how things move through the process. So the first thing that happens is the service request comes in either from the business or IT operation, and they grab it from, they go to the catalog and retrieve their service request, and it's available to customers to access in exactly the same way. Once they make that request, it's passed through to the automation queue, and it gets kicked off, and the flow then picks up the tasks that would automatically take care of the process. And it's all done in the background without any user interaction at all. It's all based on processes and tasks that are machine build, whether it's onboarding or server building, password resets, or software deployment. It's all self-service and is easy for users to access. the experts are available to help build those flows, and they're repeatable and done in the same way every time. So you don't have to worry about mistakes that are made when somebody's manually following a build process from documentation. Everything's repeatable and done in the same method after it's been tested and qualified as being the right way to do it. So you preserve your expertise, you preserve your investment because you're able to leverage the your tools that you've already purchased, because your service management or your service catalog can reach out to HP orchestration, which can then reach out to your existing vendor tools that you've got now and the investment that you've made. You increased your customer satisfaction because instead of taking days to fulfill their request, you're now bringing that down to hours or minutes. And you've increased your operational efficiency because your time to fulfillment is significantly shorter. And you have a cost reduction because because of the efficiencies, you're not having to clean up errors that are human mistakes, and you're not wasting time to have services available to people, and you might be able to lessen the staff, be able to do less with more. So now what we'll do is we'll move out to the demo, unless, Torrey, you have anything that you want to add to the automation
the only thing,
discussion.
Yeah, Stephanie, the only thing I might add would be that satisfaction bullet that you talked about briefly there, in that we live in a instant gratification type society. People want what they want it now. To increase the adoption of the catalog and to increase the catalog end users' satisfaction, as well as the IT technicians' satisfaction, automation helps you get there, because as we're going to see here in the demonstration here in a moment, is the amount of time it takes from the end user placing the request through the actual fulfillment of that request is hands down faster than any human involved process. I think that's important to note, is really automation helps you drive that end user satisfaction to help with your catalog and request management adoption across your organization.
Yeah, I can't agree more. I have an experience with a company that I recently worked with where it literally takes days and weeks to get all of the approvals to get a user account created, and they just know that when a new person starts working there, that they can expect them to be sitting around just with a finger in their ear waiting, or fiddling around on the internet waiting until they have all of their approvals and all of their accounts ready to be able to start actually working. And this sort of process would really help them. So what we're looking at here is the orchestration flow that we're going to show you in a moment to request a user account to be automatically created in Active Directory. We start out by determining the type of account that we want, whether it's just going to be a test account that's created, whether it's going to be an employee account or a contractor account. And based on those types of values, different things are set. Then we check to see if that particular username has already been used in the environment, so we don't get duplicates. And if that username has already been requested, then we send a response back to the service manager to request manual intervention so that the user can be created and somebody can look at it. If everything looks good, then we go ahead and create the user and then update the service request to know that we've automatically created that user and everything is ready to go. So this is
Stephanie, I think
Sorry?
I think the important thing to note here is that a lot of these steps are those manual thought process steps that a human would have to go through, right? Is the end user requesting a test account? Is the end user requesting an actual full-time employee account? Are they requesting a contractor account? And those decisions in and of themselves could drive different implementation routes, if you will. In this case, they all 3 point to checking to see if the user ID exists and moving on through the flow. But in other organizations or in broader organizations, those may have different triggers and could trigger an alternate workflow, if you will.
They could trigger an alternate workflow, but what's interesting here is that and what I can show you is that the results of this is that the OU in which the user is placed is different depending on which type of user is selected. So there are differences, even though we're going through the same process, there are different values that are being set based on these checks. So when the user gets created, they get added to a different OU. The employee's OU, the test account OU, or the contractor OU. They could, if in some cases in a more complex environment, you might use a different template to create the user. We're not using templates in this case, but you could use a different template and have different security settings based on the type of user. We do different security settings because of the OU we put the users in, based on whether they're a contractor or an employee or a test account.
Yeah, that's fabulous. I didn't, even being part of the presentation, I didn't realize that we were doing that level of manipulation on the back end to determine the different OU. And for those folks who are not LDAP savvy, different OU implies that person is created in a different bucket in the Active Directory system.
Yeah, so they're going in a different folder based on. So even something as this looks like a deceptively simple flow. There is some complexity going on in the background here. So this is the automated process that's going to be kicked off by our request. So are we ready to go ahead and try and do that, do you think?
I think so. It's a good next step.
Okay. So our next step is to log into Service Anywhere, where we have our service catalog, and this is what our users would see. We have the opportunity to go here and see what services are available to us. We have the service that allows us to add a user to Active Directory. And if we take a look at this, we can see, okay, we can add a user to Active Directory, and it tells us that this will use HP Operations Orchestration as the automated fulfillment engine. There's some specific information that we need to select as the requester. We need to select what type of user this is going to be, whether it will be a full-time employee or a contract employee, or are we building a test user. We're going to go ahead and choose a test user and select the user ID that we want. So we put in the user ID, which would be the whatever standard the company would have for their
and of course, this list could be expanded based upon the actual implementation, correct? A lot of organizations
Absolutely.
need more than just the user type, user ID, and full name. They may need, desired email address or birthday or what have you. And a couple of notes.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
We could add all of those fields could be transferred using this interface.
Perfect.
And then we need a business justification for why are we requesting this user ID. And we're going to say that Diane is a new hire. At this point, if we had any documentation that we needed to attach, we could attach that and we're ready to hit the submit button. So it tells us that our request has been submitted, and for the purposes of this demo, to make things go smoothly, we're not invoking any approval process, though we could absolutely do that, and you might do that in a live production environment, or you may have that approval process be invoked depending on who was the person who requested it. Maybe if it's the managing supervisor who requests, maybe there's some approval required. But if it's an HR person requesting, then there's not an approval process. So let's go over and take a look at HP orchestration. This is the web interface for orchestration, where we can go and take a look at what flows have been run and what their status was. We know from our task number, or our request number, which was 13504, that this is our flow that was kicked off. We can see that it resolved and it was a success.
Stephanie, just real quick, a question had come in. Is this interface a interface that would be, I'm sorry, I'm trying to paraphrase the question here. Is this interface something that the end user would see, or is this a administrator?
No, this is really an administrator style interface, or so this interface could be accessible to end users if you wanted to give them the ability to go see a report status of their runs. It can be a little convoluted for them, but depending on the sophistication of your end users, you could provide it to them.
Okay, so it's probably something you want to limit to IT staff, for instance.
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely. So we can see here that it ran through the processes and was successful. Really more of interest to an IT person than an end user. At this point, let's go back and see what we can see from the perspective of looking at the full request here in our service management application. So we can search for Diane and see if we can find her. Here's her request 13504. We're going to go view the details.
Steph, if I could interject here just for a second, that search functionality that Stephanie just used, even being part of this presentation, I did not expect her to do it that way, but that is an example of exploiting the technology and exploiting the search functionality available in the newer systems today, especially in this ITSM space, to get to your information quickly. And that's one of those examples of exploiting the technology from a search engine perspective.
I guess it's just one of those ways about how different people look for information. You know, it's
exactly.
So here we are looking at So here we are looking at the details for the request. The title is we want to add a user to Active Directory. That came from our catalog request type. Here's our description, which came from our business requirement, our new hire, Diane Mason. Here, who requested it, and all of our automated fields in priorities and impacts, that we selected a test user and the full name of the test user and her her pass or her user ID. If we show more information here, we can see the interaction with OO. So we passed to OO, the user type being test, the user ID, and the user full name. Those were the fields that we needed to have. After we passed that information, OO said, yep, got it, I'm going to kick off this flow. And then we have the response when the flow was completed.
Yeah, one thing to note here, Stephanie, is we left these fields exposed merely for the sake of demonstration. In an actual deployment, these fields would typically be hidden from even technician view. They're really more system fields in the back end, intended just to show the communication that goes back and forth.
Right, but you would keep the response, right? The final response, because you're passing that.
Yeah, one of the things we did was take the response that comes back from OO here, and over on the discussions tab, you can see that response gets noted as part of a discussion. So we can see that the HPO flow execution succeeded, and that happened 6 minutes ago. Obviously, the user with CN Diane Mason got added there. So we would definitely keep that level of functionality exposed.
Right.
Stephanie, a question came in that I wanted to address here just momentarily, since we're looking at this interface. Sandeep asked a very valid question. Is this view available in Service Anywhere or on-premises OO? So I want to take this question and just take a second, Stephanie. We can identify the on-premise components here and what is actually running out in the cloud. So this is one of the great features of Service Anywhere. So this screen that she's looking at here in this interface, this is out in the cloud in HP's data center running on their Service Anywhere SaaS environment, so software as a service, as well as the catalog functionality. All of that, jump over that tab, this interface as well. So those two interfaces are hosted out by HP. They are completely outside of any Greenlight office of any kind. So that comes with obviously all of the benefits of being a SaaS-based solution. Now, there's a piece of technology that's enabling us to communicate with HP Operations Orchestration and interact with our internal systems that are inside of our firewall. That piece of technology that's in use is called the on-premise bridge. So what that on-premise bridge allows us to do is communicate between HP's cloud and our internal network. So HP Operations Orchestration here is actually running inside Greenlight's network. So it's inside our firewall. It's inside everything. Okay, where Service Anywhere is the outside. Okay, that's out in the cloud, out in the public cloud, if you will. Hopefully, Sandeep, that answers your question. Feel free to reach out if you have additional questions on that topic. Sorry, Steph, you can jump back to it.
Oh, no, that's great. That was a great question. So this discussion flow is where we can see what's happened in terms of the conversations and interactions for this particular request. We can see that we have a task plan with one item, which was to go and provision the account via automation orchestration. And if we double click on that, we can see that here was our start time and end time of the task, where it reached out to OO and kicked off the flow, and OO said, yep, I'm going to do that. And we're finished there. Just for
one thing to note, Steph, if you could jump back to that task plan, just one thing to note.
Sure.
Is there's an assignee set, and I'm sure that caught a lot of people's attention. So why is there an assignee set in an automated flow? So the reasoning for that is, at the end of the day, you do need to have a technician responsible to oversee, to make sure these things go well. And the assignment there really is to cover the case of if, for whatever reason, the automated flow fails and the automation system reports back that it failed. This really identifies who would be responsible at that point to research and identify and potentially fix that problem that occurred. This task got completed relatively quickly, so everything's good. Bob, the IT expert here in our example, is off the hook, per se, for this request, and it's fulfilled without him engaging. But if somebody did need to engage, that would be the person responsible for engaging.
And we have some history on the case as well. All of the interactions and steps that were taken can be seen here. Now, as the requester, I have received email telling me that everything has been resolved, and I can go see what I can come and take a look at my case, and it's now in the validation step, and it tells me that the user was created, and I can go ahead and accept that if everything is to my satisfaction, and we're good to go. I'm a happy camper, and it took us, less than 6 minutes or so to have a user created automatically. So at this point, we are finished our demo, and I thought we had some QA slides, but maybe not.
That's okay. I think we've answered all the questions that have come in. Flores, did you have something out there?
Yeah. No. So I think we do answered all the questions that come in. Love the presentation and the demonstration. Love what I saw, especially the integration between Service Anywhere and operations. Very good, very good. So no more questions, Torrey?
None that I see on my side. Oh, actually, one just came in. Give me just a second here to process.
Sure.
Question came in. Will the orchestration interface work in the same way with HP Service Manager if it's installed in a customer site, and what version of SM is required? So the short answer to that is yes, absolutely. HP Orchestration can be integrated with Service Manager on premise. There's a couple of different things to keep in mind in that capacity, but we can definitely help with those types of questions. So specifically what versions need to be supported. The latest versions obviously will work. I believe it's Operations Orchestration 10.02. Stephanie, correct me if I'm wrong there. Coupled with Service Manager 9.3 and beyond. Though the integration and the functionality that you saw today could be retrofitted going all the way back to even the Service Center 6X days on the Service Manager side. So hopefully that answers that question. Is the Service Anywhere interface in Flash? No, the Service Anywhere interface is not in Flash. It is actually a HTML5-based application. It's fully supported across mobile devices as well. So you can go to that interface on your iPhone, on your Android phone, depending on where you fall on that side of that argument. You can look at it from your tablet. It's fully functional on tablet. HP has used a responsive design in that regard to make it form factor compatible. So depending on the different device and the different form factor of the device you're coming from, the screen will automatically be adjusted to fit. So in certain situations you will see icons. Sometimes you'll see icons and words. It depends on how much screen real estate there is with that end user functionality in mind, right? Making sure that it's functional for the end user. Steph, we had a question to jump back and see the catalog again. So if we could just jump back and kind of browse through the catalog. So this is, for the most part, an out-of-the-box Service Anywhere catalog, just giving ideas for how to categorize and how to work through things. We've obviously created a Greenlight demo category here, which has a given service in it, just for the sake of this demonstration. But Stephanie, if you browse through those, I can try to pick up some of these other questions, hopefully to get some visibility to that catalog. One thing you might show here is searching as well. If you go back to the main Service Anywhere page, there should be a search box. You can right there in the middle. Yeah. Question came in: is the integration with HP Orchestration and Service Anywhere simple? The short answer to that is yes, if you understand the different parts and pieces on on the different sides. So Service Anywhere has some things that you need to do to Service Anywhere. Operations Orchestration has some things that you need to do to it. Your flows need to be created to accept input in a certain style, if you will. There's this on-premise bridge component. If Ricky, it looks like you asked that question. If you would like additional detail or would like a more detailed review, feel free to reach out and we can set that up. Another question that came in: what other HP products can be integrated with Service Anywhere, like monitoring, project management? Fantastic question. HP Service Anywhere has a open REST API that can be integrated to retrieve data, to insert data. So your typical CRUD operations, create, update, delete. Though delete, don't quote me on delete. I don't know that you can actually delete data, but create and update definitely, so you can move things through the phases of a given workflow. And that's the exact API that we use specifically for this operations orchestration integration. The questions are flowing in. Bear with me while I try to get. Yeah, bear with me while I try to get a little organization here. Maybe this has been covered, but end users can still run impact analysis on change requests, et cetera, with integration with CMDB that has info-dependent CIs. I'm not quite following that question in regards to this topic. In regards to Service Anywhere as a whole, and even HP Service Manager on premises, the end users in this case being people not inside of IT probably would not have the ability to run impact analysis, but people inside IT would. How would a user determine whether to use orchestration versus SM's service catalog? Okay, so fantastic question. The difference and when to draw the line in between the two. So a service catalog, just think of a service catalog as a request intake functionality. It's not doing any of the actual work to fulfill the request. Okay, in a manual process, the fulfillment of that request that came in, the catalog facilitates the request being inputted, if you will. And once it's inputted and the end user has provided to IT what it is they're asking for, IT would pick up that request on the back end system from a technician perspective and manually fulfill it. All we've done here effectively is try to reduce that manual involvement and use operations orchestration and insert it as that fulfillment mechanism itself. So operations orchestration would not particularly be leveraged in this capacity to take in the request. It would be used more to fulfill the request, to reduce the IT involvement on the backside. Handful of other questions here. We were expecting to get some insight into request management workflow inside Service Anywhere without using HPOO. Is there capability to design a workflow for request management in Service Anywhere? And is it similar to Service Manager request management? Very good question. And we could definitely follow up and walk through that. So let me give a quick overview on the differences. So Service Anywhere and their request management mechanism for both the request process as well as the task plan in Service Anywhere is very similar to the process designer functionality that's available for the on-premise Service Manager solution. Okay, the on-premise Service Manager solution does not have a process designer content pack available for true request management in Service Manager itself, so they are different in that capacity. To kind of get where you're going with that question, Service Anywhere, you can manipulate the request flow, everything from the meta phase all the way down to the phase and the different automatic transitions that occur there, as well as, Stephanie, if you jump back to your request and you go to that task plan, when you are defining your service offering in Service Anywhere, if you were to jump to an administration screen, Stephanie's not going to be familiar with that, so I'm going to try to shortcut this a little bit. Stephanie, if you hold your cursor over that green box there and click that little pencil, you only have access to view, so that didn't work out too well. But basically, you can create these task plans that determine what happens, and you can make some of them automated, and you can make some of them manual. You can build logic, so maybe task 3 in the sequence only gets executed if task 2 was successful. that sort of logic behind there. If you'd like additional information on the functionality and features available in Service Anywhere request management, feel free to reach out, and we'd love to set up some time and go through those in detail with you. How would a user determine whether to use orchestration versus SM's service catalog? Oh, sorry, we already answered that question. That's my management on the back. That's not very well. I will stop answering questions at the moment. We only had an hour this morning or this afternoon, depending on where you're at. So I will stop with the questions. We have everybody's name. We should be able to get everybody's contact info, and we'll definitely reach out and follow up with anyone who has questions. Floris, I'm not quite sure how long the question manager will be open if folks wanted to continue to post questions that we could follow up with them on.
I'm not sure either, but I think we can leave it open for, let's say, another 10 minutes to make sure that all the questions will come in. I think it's important.
Okay.
It's a great idea that you will pick them up and answer them individually. That's great. So yeah, again, thank you very much, Stephanie and Torrey, for the presentation and the demonstration. Again, love both the presentation and the demonstration. Of course, thank you all for attending the webinar today. And as I said in the introduction, we will post the slide set, but also the presentation, and send you an email where you can find it on the Vivid website. So with that, again, I'd like to thank you all, and hope to see you soon.
Real quick, Floris, if I could interject just for a second. Stephanie, can you jump to the slide that has our pictures and our emails on it, and just keep that open for a handful of, maybe a minute or two, so that folks can get our contact information if they have direct questions? I believe it was early on in the slide deck. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, there's our email address. You might edit that and just add our email addresses in there, just so folks can get those written down. Stephanie at Greenlight Group and Torrey at Greenlight Group, Torrey at greenlightgroup.com. For those folks who, if for whatever reason you don't get a question into the question box, or you're watching this on review, that's how you can get to it.
Great idea. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, and hope to see you soon.
All right, thank you, Floris, for hosting. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.